And we're live. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for braving the storm with us, our loyal fans, friends, and followers, as we fight the tyrannical evil that is Time Warner Cable. We will form a united front, and one day we will take arms with our rhetoric, our nonsensical MMA trivia, and we will write
Witness!
a very sternly worded letter with harsh connotation. We will send to them, and they will respond with a tweet back 2.5 hours later. Once you've had an opportunity to cool down, you don't care as much. I might be speaking from experience because I just recorded 2.5 minutes of this show with my colleague making his great return to the show, Brett Diaz. Britt, address our militia.
Yes, we shall rise up against the tyranny of the mighty, yet corrupt TWC and overthrow them, and then mainly switch providers as our main course of remedy, I think. I believe.
Yeah. I live in a complex with a gentleman, very polite guy, who works for Verizon, and he installs FiOS for a living. So he goes all damn day, then has to come home to this shit.
Well,
Everybody, if you listen to this, hashtag TWE can sucks my nuts, and I will send you postage-free a wad of our stickers, and then I will kiss personally each one of them. If you tweet hashtag TWC can sucks my nuts.
We might get more flies with sugar than vinegar if you were to maybe like tag Frontier, because Frontier is the company that has purchased all of Verizon FiOS's infrastructure and will be installing FiOS. So you may be able to get some traction there, like promote Frontier for them. Maybe they'll like speed up the access process for your neighborhood.
Oh, I actually listened to an administrative law judge today tell me that for 9 hours she sat in a vacant lot where her house is going to be built to have Frontier a landline installed. 9 hours, and eventually this completely no-showed. And so she called and she talks about the Department of Weights and Measures and all these things, and the supervisor says, well, we can make sure that you get it installed next weekend. No guarantee as to a time, just the weekend. So that's, I'm not having the faith in Frontier that you seem to have. But I can try. I can suspend my disbelief.
Well, I'm not here to say that Frontier is good. Simply that appealing to Verizon will do us little good. I'm hoping that's being picked up on the video right now. It's hard to know.
It gets picked up when my microphone makes enough noise, but my fiance picked up a pinwheel, and I have no context as to why. And she very rarely makes purchases unless it's something altruistic, so I like to imagine that there's some little orphan with some crutches who got to eat some extra gruel tonight because my fiance bought this little pinwheel that I had on my desk while I was recording the show. But, Brett, I feel like we have...
We're a field. We're a field right now.
Yeah, I feel like we're game to go. You ready to get into this shit?
I've been game to go since 2.5 minutes before this thing even started.
You know what I mean? Son of a bitch. You are giving me post-traumatic stress from thinking of the episode that would have been. All right. Brett, we haven't had your opinion of the Conor McGregor situation, which has been ongoing and very frustrating to me personally. You tweeted me the other day that with one of his fiascos, he may have become your second favorite fighter of all time. Brett, I want you to give me your truest and most thorough opinion of Conor McGregor, and then I want you to do an impression of him. Go.
I'm not going to do an impression because that's just not what I'm going to do. Unless maybe if we can say Scottish instead of Irish, because my Irish accent is okay, but it often goes into Scottish, unknown to me. But as a good socialist, I want to support McGregor. He's telling it like it is. It's got to be the fighters first, not this fucking UFC bourgeois shit, you know? So that's why I say that he has become sort of one of my top favorite fighters, because I'm very much going to support someone who has done so very much for the UFC and then still has the willingness to come out and say, hey, it's me, like this is my brand, I have to support myself here, Like, you guys need to support me, not yourselves.
Well,
And so that's why I'm gonna support him all day, all day.
so if I may interject, I have a business proposition for you. I know phone sex is kind of a dying art, but if you'd like to put on that sweet little Irish accent of yours, I think we might have a side business, my friend. But
I've talked
truly,
about going into that. I've talked about going into the industry a number of times, but I just enough like my door or my voyeur or my mind.
yeah, I very largely agree with you in principle, but I don't think this is a principle for all fighters. I think this is a principle. I want to think that he's an altruistic guy and that he's looking out for other fighters because he has addressed the multitude at length multiple times. But truly, this is just a guy who's serving his own interest. And what frustrates me about the situation, I do agree that fighters should get paid for their promotion. I do think that needs to happen. I don't think that the way he went about this particular situation was okay. If he had engaged in this during contract negotiations, boom, I'm totally on point. But to do it after the fact with really no bargaining power whatsoever, it just doesn't make any sense, and it looks like a tantrum to me. Rebut me.
Yeah, yeah. No, I actually I agree with that perspective, and I don't think he's big. Don't get me wrong. My wanting to support him as a fighter, fighters first, is not necessarily correlated with he's doing it for good reasons. I think that he, being a fighter who has elevated much of the value of a fighter to a card, he's elevated that perspective. And so him to continue that fight and to go out and get sort of, in the face of the UFC is what I'm appealing to and what makes me happy, because I don't really like the method that he uses, especially where he's doing that thing where he's like, oh, no, I am back on the card, or no, this is all this, all these things that he's saying, because I don't know if he's like drinking his own Kool-Aid about, create, be positive, create the world that you want to live in, and it'll happen. I don't know if he's trying to do that or what. I just know that as long as he's willing to put his money where his mouth is and not cave to the UFC just because they threatened to kick him off a card, I'm going to support it, and I'm going to be happy when he does it. Because let's the UFC is losing money, so is he. He is willing to lose money in the face of this.
Yeah, one thing I definitely note is he's been talking about, oh, yeah, well, he came out today and said, well, UFC 200 won't break 1.5 million pay-per-view. Yeah, and this is not a pay-per-view that has a built-in number, so why wouldn't we put you, this cash cow, on a 201? Because there's no significance to 201 without the fighters that are on it. This is a card where really this is one of very rare cards, I guess probably with the exception of UFC 209, where the number has any significance in the current MMA climate. And I think that he's doing himself a disservice at that point, because he's almost proved his own point where it's like, oh, yeah, well, without me, this card's nothing. But this card is something without him. And it's truly the 201, the 202, and so forth that could really stand to use him. So he's almost making a self-fulfilling prophecy, don't you think?
Maybe. But I think that while I don't necessarily disagree with your point, I do think that there's something to be said about the 200 card was originally going to have Conor McGregor, Rousey, and so on and so forth. And now it's got Daniel Cormier and John Jones. That's its big draw now. It's headline now. And so, yeah, I think him being on any card will help those other cards. But I think he definitely has a point in this card is going to suffer extreme amounts without him being on it. I'll be surprised if a million buys.
You really do? Even with John Jones and multiple title fights and everything, you really think it's going to be that low?
Yeah, I'll be surprised if it breaks a million. And I'll be fucking flabbergasted if it does more than 1.2 million.
Wow.
Which is still going to be as a far cry from maybe 1.5 or higher if McGregor was on it, and especially if it was McGregor and Rousey on it. Now you've got Cormier and Jones, which their first fight did like 800,000 buys or something like that. So it was good, but not fucking phenomenal. And then Daniel Cormier on his own he's a very middle of the pack earner. And then you've got Aldo and Edgar, which is a great fight. It's a huge fight for fans, for people that want to watch mixed martial arts. But, the majority of just people that are buying the fight because it's going to be a party and they're all having fun. And Tate versus Nunez or Nunes. I mean, I'm sorry. I barely give a fuck about that, and I'm pretty excited about it, in terms of, again, watching it because I like it. I'm excited. But as someone who wants to tune in to see D changer or something, no, move the fucking needle at all. And it goes on down from there.
I can definitely agree with that point.
Yeah. So I think McGregor is 100% right though about what they're losing by not having him on there. However, once they cave once to, even if it's to a McGregor, where do they go from there?
Yeah, it's a slippery slope argument. And, it's one that in law school we hated hearing, but it's a very solid point, because like I said, I think last show and the show before that, if we have Conor and he can get away with oh, yeah, well, I'm retired. Oh, I got you more press because I said that I was retired. And then you're going to have people being like, I am a transgender Muslim and I am going to stop fighting because I have a arm wrestling contest with the president on the moon. And then it's just going to become hyperbole and the boy who cried wolf. And that's really what happened here with Conor McGregor. I'm retired. Okay, tough shit. Done. And now he's like, oh, no, wait, I didn't. Oh, no. And, it's too far gone. As soon as they announced Jones-Cormier, that fight was gone. And there was no hope of resuscitating it. And it's so funny to me that we have so many people going, oh, can we do a petition? No, you can't. You know what you can do as a petition? You cannot buy the pay-per-view. That's the only recourse that you have.
Yeah. I mean,
and really, if you're willing to miss out on credible MMA for a rematch that never needed to happen because you have some talking head, fucking go for it. But don't fucking message me and be like, oh, we need to do this. No thanks.
Although I don't know if I agree on why the fight was pulled, because it wasn't pulled until he failed to do his promotional duties. His retirement stand, I thought, was good promotion. It got people super interested. But then he went on to do the actual thing that caused the problem, and the UFC called his bluff, and that's where it fell apart, because once the UFC called his bluff, everything he did afterward just seemed petulant.
Yeah, exactly. It was a tantrum.
Exactly, like you said. And so it goes from, this is a big, strong move to, no, we called your bluff, dude. We'll put you on another card later. And he's over here going, damn it, no. And he's not wrong. He's not wrong that they're going to lose a lot of money for this. He made a bad bet, and the UFC was like, no, let's go with canceled cards before for less. So, no.
And the UFC is in a position where they can lose more money more often than Conor can. They can afford to skip 4 or 5 pay-per-views, and they could still come back with a thunderous vengeance. But Conor can't pull stunts like this all the time. One point I wanted to ask you, the guy who comes out looking like roses in all this is Nate Diaz. Agree? He did nothing wrong. He stepped in on short notice, and the only argument you can make for him is he wants to prove that it wasn't a fluke. And to his point, he's like, I'm not going to risk my time or my reputation to fight anybody who's not going to pay me. And it's funny because he made the best argument for anybody.
Was none of us. Hashtag wipeout. That's the best argument in my opinion.
No, my point was just that he the fact of money. Yeah, he totally deserves it. And that's the only reason that I think there's any intrigue to that fight at all is in his perspective, not in Conor's perspective. And all the motivation I need to know that he has is that he wants to get paid, because he's clearly not going to get a title shot out of this. It doesn't do anything for his career except, it's a comeback to something he's already done. So he's effectively doing a cover of his own song. But if he's doing that, remix so that he can make money, I'm fine with it.
Yeah, well, and also, I mean, to your point, he already beat Conor. Worst case scenario for him. The worst case scenario is that he beat Conor McGregor. So why should he even bother to worry about it? He's the ball is in his court. He can do whatever he wants. He's he's going to come out looking better than Conor McGregor will, because Conor McGregor's throwing a tantrum and Nate Diaz is like, I'm going on vacation. Fucking, remember like a month and a half ago when I earned $500,000? Yeah, I'm going on vacation.
And well, I mean, if you take the pay-per-view buys, he made over $1 million. You got guys like Neil Magny, albeit respectively, calling him out. Why? That is an incredibly dangerous fight, not just stylistically, but in terms of money. Worst case scenario, when he rematches Conor, he loses, and he's a stepping stone for Conor to go to greatness. But in doing that, he makes a butt shitload of money. If he loses to Neil Magny, which I'm very certain he would, what does he get out of it? Show money? Cool. He's not going to get a cut of UFC 200 money to fight Neil Magny. Are you daft?
This kind of goes to my point about I like Conor McGregor because he's standing up, for the fighter making there. Diaz brothers we're not here for you to build your name off of us. We're here to make money and fight, and that's it. So all due respect to Neil Magny, who's great up and comer, blah 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 blah. No reason for Nate Diaz to come in, make what is it, like $60,000 or some shit, probably for his fucking show money, and then back off into the fucking nether regions of just outside the top 10 relevance.
Yeah, where I mean, even then, if he beats Neil Magny's on the cusp of a title shot despite a glowing record. So then he'd be in another situation where his trajectory doesn't go anywhere, even if he wins. He's in kind of a no man's land.
Yeah, to your point about Conor McGregor, I'm glad he did what he did. I wish that he had gone about it better. I also thought that was very strange. Like his whole fucking, I don't know, when coaches and trainers get involved in like PR spats, it's very fucking weird to me. Like every time it's weird to me. And this time
I thought it was very poorly handled. Like you've seen Greg Jackson and other guys kind of get mildly involved in the past. But like look at the whole Black Zillions versus ATT and other things. It doesn't sell. There's no interest. It's just kind of I don't know. It's not cool because there's this like pseudo respect because we're all martial artists. But then at the end of the day, we're still trying to antagonize one another. And the idea of like, oh yeah, we still think that Nate's a great fighter, but keeping him or Conor off this card is just stupid and wrong. It was so aimless on all sides. I think. Did you kind of agree that like John Kavanaugh and his comments almost rudderless at that point?
Yeah, I thought, and they almost seemed just like they made the whole thing seem even worse because now Dad's involved. Oh, my dad's gonna defend me. Like that's what it felt like to me. Like Superstar's son got a little spoiled and decided to throw a tantrum, and Dad had to come in and talk to the coach. Like, oh, but my son's great. Like, we should all just work this out. It's like, shut up, Dad. Like, fuck off. No one cares.
Yeah. And for those of you who are new to the show and have never hung out with Brett and I, one of the things that we always talk about with regard to Fedor Emelianenko is that he looks like somebody's dad. And it's like the situation where a kid comes home and it's like, Dad, this kid stole my bike. And he's too tired from working at some factory somewhere to even put a shirt on, and he just grumpily walks over and snatches the bike. That's who Fedor is. John Kavanaugh is not a Fedor. There was no mystique or wonder there. It was just like kind of conjecture.
John Kavanaugh is the kind of guy that's like at the game where the son is, being penalized by the coach for being a dickhead. And he's got like this Budweiser who's like, oh, come on. Like, my son's great. You should let him play. Like, come on. Like, that's John Kavanaugh. Great coach or whatever, but in this instance, fuck off.
Well, yeah, the argument being, come on. Like, that's not a good, solid argument because when people talk about policy, it feels like the fighter pay for promotion is an excuse after the fact. Because to me, Conor does get paid more than anybody else, and a lot of that is because he does do more press than anybody else. His earning capacity is tied directly to that. And if he wants to alter the expectation, like I said, he needs to do it in the advance of the contract, not once there's a contract already set up, and then he does it after the fact. And I think that's one of those situations where now you have people go, oh, well, it's a policy, it's a movement. We need to do this for everyone. But really, it was he made a poor move in negotiation, in the way he tried to reach a resolution. He just kind of mismanaged everything. Not enough to where his whole career's fucked or anything, but definitely enough to where there is no chance in hell he fights on UFC 200 unless John Jones splits one of his legs in twain and tries to like meander into the cage like a three-legged tripod.
Okay,
Agreed?
well that imagery got a little bit weird for me, but yeah, and I think that a big problem with it was that I feel like McGregor did a very like spur of the moment kind of thing, and he's done excellent business to this point. I think we could both agree with that. But he made a huge business misstep. He confused Dana White and Lorenzo Fertitta, the business people, for his friends. And they might be friends, but not when business is involved. And I think what he expected to happen was him to do this thing and for his friends to step in and go, you know what, you're right. You've been so good to us. We're going to do you a solid right now. But what happened was he did that. And then when he said, hey, Dana White and Lorenzo, my friends, can you back me up? They said, no, this is a business. So you do your job, we do our job, we're good.
Yeah.
And
Fact is, nobody made him take short notice fights. They keep being like, oh, well, he was such a team player. And he also got paid for those. He chose, he made a decision, and the UFC made their decision. The same thing can be said. They're just playing the long game instead of the short game.
well, not even about, I mean, I do agree they are, but I don't think it's even about that. It's about you have a business relationship, and it's all that, Lorenzo gives me Middleton Rare every time I win. It's like, cool, but you got to realize that you're business partners. You're not just friends, and they've been at this for 20 years. Do you really think they're just going to fucking like let one of their, not employees, one of their contractors come in and go, hey guys, like, I'm going to take this one off right now. We're still cool, right? And I'm trying to think, like, who was McGregor's manager? Oh, offhand?
Who is what? I'm sorry, one more time?
You know who Conor McGregor's manager is?
I don't. I've seen the name come and go, and I've seen that he's had goings with his former manager was involved in some way when he was doing the whole retirement scare thing, but I don't know the name off the top of my head.
Apparently, it looks like it's Audi Attar. But I really wonder if that manager knew what was about to fucking happen or not, because it really feels like he didn't, because no manager on the planet would go, yeah, let's see if UFC calls our bluff on this multi-million-dollar venture we're all in. Like, they honestly think Conor McGregor, flew off his own handle, tried to do his own thing, very spur of the moment, just decided to do it, and no one saw it coming. And then when it happened, everyone's like, whoa, what did you do? And now we're here. Now we've got him with no fight. Nate Diaz is on vacation. Daniel Cormier, John Jones are the new headliners. And Conor McGregor's like, well, I'm training in Iceland. Well, I don't know how you're paying those people because you're not fucking fighting.
Yeah, not anytime soon anyway. So, yeah, I think we're kind of in agreement on there. You want to move on to a new topic?
Sure. In fact, we could just move on to the topic of Daniel Cormier and John Jones and this whole thing, like, between them. Like, I've been listening to DC talk a lot about John Jones, and you guys probably went over it last week, but I think it's really interesting that their relationship has become so interesting and so Daniel Cormier thinks and hopes that John Jones is on the upswing, is on the up and up again, and John Jones is calling Daniel Cormier like a good guy, and he admits that when he's fucking with him, like he's fucking, and I find that really interesting. Like, how do you think that affects like this going forward? Because the amount of pay-per-view buys that they generated originally was built off of a fucking fist fight, and then was built off of just months and months of mounting tension. Accidentally aired arguments, backstage and shit like that. But now they're kind of like doing these very weird, like, backhanded snipes at each other, while also kind of saying, "Oh, we're friends, everything's cool."
Yeah, I think that the UFC is kind of trying to make lightning strike twice with the embeddeds. I don't think that the press conferences are anywhere near as sensational as a Conor can do. They're good. I mean, they generate headlines and stuff. There's some good pull quotes, but overall, it's not that great. It's not bombastic or like crazy in any stretch of the means. I think that Daniel Cormier should be sending Ovince St. Preux a fucking fruit basket, because that's the only talking point that he has anymore, because he's already lost to John. But being able to say, oh, well, this is the new John, and things like that, that's the only place where Daniel Cormier has any success besides going after him again for substance abuse problems or what have you. Other than that, we already know that John's got DC's number, and he, like, one of the things I talked about is, DC can have his little notebook that Chris Weidman talked about with all of his clever little musings in it. But the fact is, John Jones doesn't need that. All he has to do is say, you suck. And you have a crowd of people giving you a torrential outpouring of applause. I mean, it's not even close.
Yeah, certainly. But how do you think that affects the interest? Or do you think that the interest is going to go down? Do you think it's, this is sort of springboarding off of Conor McGregor's off it, so what do we do with 200? And whereas Daniel Cormier, John Jones would have been a fucking shoe, and like, hell yeah, let's do that. Do you think that there's still this big push, or is it kind of like a fucking whatever?
I think that the casual fan is going to be a little bit more laxed about it, but I think that, the diehards are going to be there. When you look at it, this is the only way to really give a rematch credence. And the fact is that now we have a Daniel Cormier who's 2 victories removed from his fight with John Jones. John Jones had 1 victory removed. DC looked fine in both those fights that he had. He beat Alexander Gustafsson. There was no real controversy there. He beat Anthony Johnson with a finish, so there's no controversy there. So he's gotten an opportunity to rebuild. Plus, you can make the arguments of ring rust. Plus, you can make the arguments of, John trying to get back to where he was. But the thing is that now you have that the title intrigue in itself is so different, because this is such an enigmatic situation where, the analyst in me is looking at it, from a psychological perspective and all these things, whereas I don't think that the casual fan's going to delve that deep, because quite frankly, they don't have the motivation to. So to answer your question in a roundabout way, I think that the crest of the people who are going to be riding that wave to UFC 200 on their Conor McGregor brand surfboard, those people are long gone. But the people who were like, oh well, I was just not going to buy UFC, but I would save my money for 201 or whatever, those people who are vested in some form, I think those will stay on. But to your point earlier, I don't think it's going to break 1.5 million pay-per-view buys. But then it doesn't have to, because the next time that Conor's on, be it 201 or 202, he has the opportunity and potential to do that. So then they have a win there. So the UFC doesn't lose in any way in this situation.
Yeah. So you're saying that even though the spike won't be as high, the overall tie, because now they have maybe a 1 million buy on this one.
And then I think that they're just shifting. I mean, it's, just because they're not going to be making it this time doesn't mean they're not going to make it ever. The fact is that it's better that it happens with 200. Like I said, there's built-in intrigue here that there's not on the other cards. So, you're just shifting that Conor McGregor money to a card that wouldn't have made Conor McGregor money, and 200 would make more money than 201 absent Conor McGregor in either scenario, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, so let's move on. Kimbo Slice, the media darling of old, proto-McGregor, if you will. He popped positive for steroids in Texas following his murderizing of Dada 5000, and he got off with a $2,500 fine, and his license to fight in Texas was revoked. Brett, was this severe enough?
That I'm always sort of to PEDs and so on, because my main argument is be consistent. Wild West or one and done. But fuck you if you've done them, or go ahead and do them. So I don't care that he did PEDs. I genuinely don't care. The dude's big enough with or without them. He doesn't fuck really. But slap on the wrist in Texas, and then to say, fuck it, you can go do whatever you want then. Because then, who cares? I mean,
yeah, with me, I look at Texas, and we talked about, there are 196.9 million square miles on the surface of Earth. Texas has 268,820 square miles on the surface of Earth, which means that Kimbo Slice cannot fight on 0.13% of the entire planet. That's not a strict penalty at all, given that he has however many states and however many countries, and there's no consequence for him financially. The only way that Texas can really do anything to his future earning capacity is, this outright revocation, but they kind of overestimate their share of the MMA market because this is the first Bellator card I can remember being in Texas, and I don't see them being on the calendar there anytime soon. So really, it's a facade, and it's almost embarrassing to their credibility. That their limits are so low, or as far as scrutiny. B, that their punishments are so feeble. I mean, who looks worse in this scenario? Bellator for employing Kimbo for being a steroid user, or Texas for just being this clusterfuck of a commission?
I definitely say Texas is the one with the egg on their face here, because you can't blame Bellator, because the worst they can do is go by whatever committee says they need to do. So they're fine. Athlete, and I use professional very loosely here. So he's going to do whatever it takes to squeeze every ounce of performance out that he can. And I also don't have a problem with steroids, so I can't blame him for that. So really that leaves Texas, which is, you can't do that. I mean, unless you don't mind that we're going to charge you $25 and then say you can't fight here again for a little while because you can fight again later. So
yeah,
I guess, and then
yeah, growing up a hardcore kid, I keep having the song from the Misfits, "Bullet," stuck in my head, and they have the lyric, "Texas is the reason that the president's dead." But I think that we should, the Overtime MMA podcast should do a cover band, and we should do "Texas is the reason that the Dada is dead." What do you think, Brett? Are you down for this? It's like a 2-chord song. I think we could do it.
I've been holding that he's a zombie, so I support it.
Good. So I think that's a nice way of, routing that up. And, what do you think that Bellator does? The whole idea that they didn't give him any kind of self-imposed penalty. They're just writing out what Texas did. And so, Kimbo's going to be fighting before Dada is. I mean, he's going to be fighting relatively soon in that rematch against James Thompson. What do you think? Do you think that they should have done a self-imposed penalty, or to your point earlier, you can't blame them because they're making money and they're going to make money?
Yeah, I'm going to stick with my original point. They're there to make money and put on fights. You're telling me that he has no other sanctions or censure than in Texas? They're playing fair.
Agreed. I mean, they still have 99.87% of the earth that they can go to put a Kimbo Slice fight on. So they don't need to go back to Texas.
Yeah, and I think also I think that it's ridiculous anyway. To my point earlier about it should be a one-and-done period, end of story, if you really want to make a big deal about it. Because especially with heavyweights, someone pops for PEDs, gets suspended, and then they're gone for a year, and they come back and fight, right? But when they usually fight once a year anyway, there's really no penalty. There's really not. Because it's usually 10% of their purse, and they're off for, a year, retroactive to whenever it was they fought. So literally a year later they can fight again. There's no penalty, nothing. I think
10% of their purse is less than the win bonus that they get as well, so it's completely offset.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I think it's a whole bunch of bullshit, and I don't think it matters. And I'm happy to support Bellator in continuing to put on Kimbo Slice fights. I think they're doing nothing wrong.
Right on. Do you think that Fabio Maldonado is doing something wrong in preparing to fight, your favorite fighter of all time, Fedor Emelianenko, with an injured cervical spine? What do you think?
This is coming from a guy whose entire UFC tenure was prefaced with, he sure does get punched in the face real good. So, no, I don't think doing anything wrong, but what sanctioning body or promoting body, you know, we can think about it like as a promotional position. I think they or whoever is sanctioning the fight there needs to go, whoa, 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 whoa. Like, we just had a guy die and get resuscitated, and then another guy a couple weeks later actually die. We don't need you in here getting fucking paralyzed. So, no, it's off. No. That's my feeling on that, personally.
Yeah, I think that the whole thing is real dangerous, and the idea that I don't know if maybe Maldonado is trying to just make headlines, because earlier this week I saw something where he was saying that he was going to take that substance that Lyoto Machida got popped for, and he was going to continue taking it. Then he reneged on that, and now he's saying that he's got an injury, but he's going to keep fighting through it. It's really out of character for him. He was never a press guy before, and I wonder if maybe they're putting that obligation on him because he's just a shill. He's going out there to lose to Fedor, not to fight Fedor. Agreed?
Yeah, I mean, I think that I'm one of the people that's giving him a little more of a chance than most people are. But in general, I agree. I agree with the overarching point here about I don't understand. Like you said, he's never been cool. So, yeah, I agree. It seems kind of strange. It's very weird. And especially to pick up as controversial a topic as PEDs, where the first thing he comes out and says is, oh, yeah, I do performance enhancers. I was doing them in the UFC. I'm going to do them now. But that's a pretty hardline thing to come out and say. And I think goes against a lot of what fighters, especially and athletes in general, are coached from a young age to never admit, So, yeah, I think it's interesting.
Yeah, who do you think is the best Fedor fight? There's talks that he's been offered a contract from the UFC, and he's indicated he's possibly going to take it, which, to my point on this show, I still think he never fights in the UFC. But if you could give him any fight aside from Fabio Maldonado, because I know this is a fight that you have been dying for years, what Fedor fight do you, his biggest fan, want?
I mean, I suppose the fight that I really want him to have is the Verdum fight, just because I want to see him get one back in that way. But that's all predicated on he's been training and is going to perform like the original Fedor, the one who wasn't enamored with his right hand and just, rushed into, Fabrizio Verdum's fucking guard to get triangled for fun, So in a perfect world, that's the fight I want to see. But otherwise, I don't know, maybe have him get one back from Bigfoot because, no, I lied. I do want to see him get one back, and it should be Dan Henderson because I fucking don't like that guy. And I would love to watch Fedor actually do what he had started to do in their fight and see it through.
Yeah, I think that he would crush Dan Henderson modernly, especially given Dan's previous performances. I think that he could definitely bring it back against Bigfoot. I think he could win that fight. But there's just, even in my wildest imagination, I don't see him being able to beat, 38-year-old flying knee Fabrizio. That's a dangerous fight for him still. Has your opinion on that changed?
No, my opinion on that was the same as yours as it is right now, which is it's a dangerous fight. It's a different guy that he would be fighting, but I have all the faith in Fedor Emelianenko when Fedor is on. I think he beats anybody when he's on.
Right on.
Point.
What do you think about?
Sorry, what's that?
What do you think of the potential of him fighting Rampage? Because there's some talks about that, given that Rampage is, I guess, again, a Bellator fighter.
I was thinking about that. I actually don't really ever want to see him fight Rampage. I don't have any interest in that fight. But I was thinking along those lines about a King Mo fight, which I think would be really fun. I think that would be a lot of fun to watch that fight.
I think that'd be highly competitive as well. I think that'd be a lot of fun.
Exactly.
And especially if it's King Mo in shoes, like when we got to see him in that Ryzen tournament.
Mm-hmm.
You smell what I'm stepping in? There's talks about Vanderlei as well, but I don't think Vanderlei would be as competitive a fight. I don't think it'd be a fight that I'd really care to see.
I think Fedor would clean his clock without even a fuck breaking a sweat. Even, if Fedor, if the Fedor that was on the downslope when he retired the first time came back, he would still, I think, clean fucking Wanderlei's clock, no problem.
Yeah, even if it was the human chemistry set that we're expecting it to be in Japan, I don't really think that it's anything that these guys, aren't acclimated to, as I'm sure you can imagine from their years long since past, or even not that long since past. Do you want to move on to talk about some more dour news and then try and pick it up again towards the end with even more, slightly less dour news?
I do, but I'm trying to let's start there. I'm trying to think of what good news there is for us.
I don't have any really. I think
I know.
I have a couple points on here that we can.
I think I do have the thing that we can talk about at the end to bring. Let's go to the dour news first.
Okay, Jordan Parsons, Black Zillions fighter, guy who's supposed to be fighting in Bellator in just a couple weeks, was involved in a hit and run accident 2 nights ago now, and has had to have part of his leg amputated, and he's in a coma.
The last I saw is his entire leg has been amputated, and it's due to organ failure. So he's probably got some septicemia going, and he's in a coma. So I know that a lot of people, myself included, at times like to think of comas like they portray comas on, TV and in movies, where it's a coma, you're just asleep really deep, and you're going to be fine. No, when you're in a traumatic coma, it's bad fucking news. It's the chances of someone coming back from a coma, even to a remote resemblance of who they were beforehand, is very remote, and it is very much a vegetable plus a little bit for most people that come out of those comas. So, and on top of it, if he's having his leg removed, I mean, his career is done, obviously. And on top of that, if he makes it through, I don't know what his quality of life will be.
Which is crazy to think this guy is, a professional athlete, not necessarily a huge celebrity, a meager online presence and everything, but a guy who was literally making a living based on his physique, and now that's just completely robbed of him. People have made Dana White has said famously that Nick Newell would never fight in the UFC. That would never happen. I mean, that's an arm, but imagine a leg. I mean, it limits your ability to make weight, stand, defend a takedown, and there's just so many things that, it's an insurmountable situation.
Try having a closed guard with one leg. You know what I mean? Try having a closed guard with one leg.
Yeah, it's impossible, and then you're just going to be perpetually getting side mounted and then fully mounted, and it's crazy because you can't wear a prosthetic. I'm sure you remember back in the day. We still talk Brock Lesnar on the show from time to time. Brock was elevating his heel status by wrestling against a guy named Zach Gowen, who was a famous one-legged wrestler who fought with only one leg. Well, the fun behind-the-scenes story behind that situation is that there was a fighter in OVW who had one leg but used a prosthetic, and he was really talented. And so word comes down on high, hey, hire the one-legged wrestler. They hired the wrong one-legged wrestler, and thus that kind of situation came to be. In pro wrestling, you can wear a prosthetic, and that's fine, but you can't do it in MMA, and so you're left unbalanced. It's crushing. The guy's a young guy and appears to be well liked. I obviously don't know him personally, but what do you think about it's also a hit and run accident. So as far as the recourse that he has available to him, not much. And likely, even if they do find the guy, that dude will spend time in prison or something to that effect. But as far as a monetary compensation, that guy's his life's probably just kind of almost over at this point.
Yeah. It's very sad. And like you said, I don't really know who he is. I'm not that familiar with his fighting style and so on, but it's just sad. It's just an event. And so, there's not even much to say about it. It's just really, really sad. And especially because it's, an MMA fighter. It's someone that's in as small a world as MMA is, it matters that someone who's an up-and-comer who's really making it for themselves or trying their best, gets taken out in ways that are far beyond their control.
Yeah, I think we will be, promoting the Kickstarter, or not Kickstarter, but the GoFundMe and these things as they come and are available. We urge everybody to pay for those. Remember, we did the same with the Kevin Randleman situation. We hope you do that now. And our community is tight-knit enough, and these guys give enough to us in terms of recreation where we can give them something. to your point, if the guy has brain damage or something like that, yeah, that's even more heartbreaking because you could totally see a world where part of this isn't having a color commentator who is a fighter who was robbed of his, dignity in a lot of ways by a tragic criminal act. And then, they get to have him in this position. They give him a new life and livelihood. You could see that being a really cool angle, but you don't even know if he's going to be able to because he's still in a coma as of us recording this tonight, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, as far as I know, he's still in. And it's from organ failure, so it's going to be very touch and go, and we'll just have to wait and see. And hopefully, something will come of it. A GoFundMe will pop up, and he can have a little bit of his and his family as well. That's the other thing. He and his family can have some of their troubles alleviated. So hopefully, that we can be part of that and help at least a little bit.
And going on to the next topic that we had is not much more lively than that. LeVar Johnson, LeVar Big Johnson, who I mentioned on the podcast, famously got Russian armbarred by Stefan Struve. He got 5 years in prison for domestic violence. I mean, did that lady from the New York State Assembly have a good point when she was saying that all of these, MMA fighters are criminals and rogues? I mean, what are we doing here, Brett? Are we supporting the enemy?
That would be the NFL. You're favored by every time something happens, it's a domestic violence thing, or it's a domestic assault, or it's Diego Brandao just got released by the UFC for felony assault. This is the problem. It always seems to be violence related. It's the NBA. I was looking at stats, and I brought this up a couple months ago, and I was looking at is leagues ahead of the NFL, MLB, and so in DWI, and then the NFL has tons of domestic violence related problems. Same with boxing, but MMA seems to be just stuck in this one thing. This same area of criminal activity is what comes up every time. And so, I don't know. It's hard to make a good argument for no, they're the 1%. The percentage isn't that big yet, so that makes them a larger percent of the general population this is happening to. And these are the people that we're hearing about because their names are big enough. Who knows what's happening in regional circuits and shit like that? Who knows?
Yeah, it's absolutely bizarre. And, you see guys like Floyd Mayweather and other combative sports guys who have been caught for these kind of transgressions in the past. And you wonder the disparity as it stands. You wonder if LeVar Johnson had Floyd Mayweather money, would he have gotten away with this? Would there have been hush money and this never gets touched on or talked about? I mean, it's a pretty compelling situation. We have a guy who was a steroid user who, I don't know. It's just there's so many things that are, you wish you could just point and say, there's a symptom. That's what it is. It's this genetic, thing. But we don't have that minority report ability where we can predict what these people are going to do. But we do know there's a lot of them. And it's all, get to the question of which comes first, the chicken or the egg? Are these guys going to MMA because they have a predisposition to violence, or having been a fighter, do they then become predisposed and then that carries over to the rest of their lives? Does that make sense?
Yeah, it absolutely makes sense. I don't know if we are. I don't want to over this. We can put it into a formula. What's more likely? Is it this or is it that? Or does this predispose someone to that or something? I don't know. I think in any sporting population, especially in a society like ours where, aggression and competitiveness is seen so synonymously with high-level sports and, being a man and this sort of thing, I'm not surprised to see it happen, although I also think that to counter that point a little bit, we also see it in females also because, for example, fucking the Venezuelan vixen from fucking the 135.
Juliana Pena, yeah.
Juliana Pena. She just magically had assault charges fucking evaporate from, beating someone up outside a bar. It's time will tell, the data will tell, but there does seem to be a very large correlation between doing MMA especially and these, and it remains to be seen is that a product of fighting? Is fighting a product of their background? Or are they actually not really related? It just happens to be in these individuals, they are prone to both, you know?
That's a great point. You, for friends and fans and followers, let us know what you think in the comments and the Twitters and all that. This is a topic that we're never going to stop talking about. It's just going to come up in one form or another. I'm glad justice was served. It doesn't sound like anybody defended him. They just defended that this was out of his character. LeVar Johnson's friends and family and whatnot. So it's, they're even admitting like, hey, that he did it, but he wouldn't normally do it. And I don't think he'd do it again. But just, just because
you have that moment where you're talking about like, well, they're saying it's out of character, and that just makes me think of Bill Burr. You think these aspens just fall out of the sky? Like, who knows? No one really knows what the fuck is happening there. It just happens that he did this thing, and now we're here. And it's not, we shouldn't speculate too much about it, but yeah, who knows? Who knows why that happened? If people are telling the truth and it really is totally out of character for him, although if I recall, he had already been charged with domestic assault in the past. So I don't know how out of character it is, but maybe it was. Maybe there was some extenuating circumstance that doesn't justify it, but explains it at least.
Yeah, I hope so. And trying desperately to bring this show back up from the negative situation that we found ourselves. Oh, wait, what?
Well, I was going to say, let's bring it up. Let's bring it up with this. And we talked earlier about how Conor McGregor has become one of my favorite fighters, but another person that's become one of my favorite fighters, even more so than in the past, has been Dominic Cruz, and his walking this perfect line between, erudite analysis and fuck you shit talking. And I'm not even talking about
is the best.
It's this thing with DJ, this thing with Demetrius Johnson, where he basically, people saying, "Are you going to have a super fight with Demetrius Johnson?" Right? And he doesn't say yes. He doesn't say no. He doesn't say, "Oh, I'd kill him." He doesn't say any of that. He goes into this detailed analysis of what it means to be a pound-for-pound great, and about how DJ is a great fighter. He's one of the best, but this is my fucking division, and if he came up here, for damn sure the size would undo him. He would not last here. He fought here before. He didn't do so well. He lost to a guy like Brad Pickett, and that was a size thing. This is my fucking division. Super fights are of a lot of interest to people, but let's be clear. This is my fucking town. This is my house. And I think that it was this beautiful way of, literally taking nothing away from DJ. It's one of those masterful performances where you can't even take issue with him. He just said he's one of the greatest of all time, period. Most shit-talking MMA is really lacking. It comes down to a "you suck" or a hashtag white belt. And it's not that great. And here's Dominic Cruz's fucking serve, and that's not even talking about his shit talk to Uriah Faber. This is just this particular instance, or his shit talk to TJ Dillashaw, where he basically shut him down by just saying, "Say something, come on."
Yeah, you don't want to be caught. Exactly, you don't want to be caught, saying something and then being wrong. But what's great about him is it's like, it's true. It's cutting cruel fact, and it's so easy to do water off a duck's back when somebody's speaking in hyperbole. The fact is, if some guy's like, "Hey, yo, I fucked your mom," odds are he's never even been in the same county as your mom, so that doesn't work. But if Dominic Cruz comes to your house, knocks politely on your door while dressed in a very nice suit, and says, "You're an unintelligent individual who's not motivated to achieve your dreams, and it's your own self-sabotage that's the cause of all of your problems," you're going to go, "Man, what the fuck what the fuck?
I was just eating some pizza. What the fuck?"
It's going to pierce what little black heart you have in your chest, and you're never going to be able to function again because Dominic, and he says it in such a polite, calm, measured tone. And you're like, what the fuck? Yep. Speak up. Be angry. Even when Dana was talking shit after he just beat TJ Dillashaw after a long layoff for 25 minutes, and he's got a disposition. He has a pre-diagnosis of plantar fasciitis, and here's Dana spouting off about, "Oh, he's got another injury." He's like, "Oh yeah, it's just this." I would have been like, "Shut your fucking bald mouth! You never done anything in your life, you bald fat fucking guy. You didn't even fight Tito Ortiz.
You became a promoter. You fucking low-life scumbag.
Your fucking jazzercise boxing or whatever." So I mean, it
right?
seems one of the things that's they always talk about like watch out for the quiet guy, and Dom Cruz has found that like great way to be the quiet guy who's outspoken, and in being outspoken is just you can't ignore him. That's kind of the thing I'm getting at. Like even if I'm not TJ Dillashaw, even if I'm not Uriah Faber, I give so much more credence to those comments. Like, oh yeah, Uriah Faber is uncoachable. The reason that he's
Yeah,
lost these title fights is because he's unwilling to change. He's bullheaded. That's why he has all these, coaches leave his gym. And you're like, I don't see how that could be false. I mean, this
yeah,
this is like verifiable, as statistically, provable as you
yeah.
can get in a statement
Every
like
time
that.
Dominic Cruz says a fuck you, it invites you to prove him wrong, and he's willing to look you in the eye the whole fucking time, just like, so I'm gonna say this thing here. You're not good. Bring it. What do you got? There's never like a fuck you. I'm gonna fuck you up. It's bring it. What do you got? Tell me. Come on. And everybody, including Uriah Faber, is just like, no, well, I'm gonna fucking knock you out. You're too slow. You're too this or that. To which Dominic Cruz is like, really? Like, I just served you a silver platter of why you suck, and you came back with, I'm gonna fuck you up and knock you out.
Or Uriah Faber's allegations of being like, oh, steroids.
Oh yeah,
Really? That's the
exactly.
best
They
you
came
can
back
do,
with
is making a
that.
statement that is literally the definition of slander. But okay, we'll get out of that.
Yeah. Yeah, so that's my high point, or my bringing it back up is, I'm thankful for Dominic Cruz in a world full of, I'm better than him everywhere. I'm gonna come. I like hurting people. I just like to fight, man. I'm a fighter. I'm so good. Like he
I
doesn't
have the
have.
best camp of my life. There's no way you
Yeah,
can beat me. I feel great. And then after the
yeah,
fight, both my knees exploded in training, and I shit my pants in the back.
yeah, exactly.
My high point is going to be, did you see the video of Daniel Cormier with the VR unit as provided by Luke Rockhold?
No, I did not. I
He
did not
goes
see that.
skiing. And I don't know if this is a recent video. I'm assuming it is because it was posted. I wasn't today. It was yesterday on Luke Rockhold's Facebook. And here's the interesting thing. Everybody's looking at Daniel Cormier being silly on these VR things. Oh, look at the skis on my feet. Whoa, the sky. Whoa. All I could look at was that Luke Rockhold on his left knee has a Stone Cold Steve Austin size knee brace.
Huh.
Brett, what have we been talking about with AKA? And our one example of like, oh, well, here's a guy who hadn't been injured was Luke Rockhold. We look at Josh Thompson. He's been pulling out of his next Bellator fight because he has injury. Every name fighter that they have, injury. And here was our little sanctimonious little Luke. And now he's gone. It's like, is AKA just doomed at this point? Are they cursed? Is AKA the actual building built on an Indian burial ground? What
No,
are
man.
we doing?
You got to understand that iron sharpens iron, and unless you like claying the iron on itself, in a violent manner without any sort of protection, it can't sharpen itself. I mean, they're the lead pipes. How are you going to sharpen that without another lead pipe? You know what I mean?
Yeah, and the dents that they're causing they're like, oh yeah, but it's like a serrated blade. Be like, no. You just cut into that blade, and now there's something missing there because it's damaged for the rest of its existence.
Well, and, I think to juxtapose this, because obviously we agree that AKA needs to change somehow, but the choral line from AKA is always the iron sharpens iron. We have they're kind of like the Donald Trump of the MMA gym world. You
Whoa.
guys train too hard. No, we have the best training. Your guys are always injured. Our guys are never injured. It's like that's the level of their response about things. But just this week, Cain Velasquez said he's going to be changing his sparring up to where he's not going to spar very hard anymore. He's going to be moving that down a whole lot because he doesn't want to get injured when he's going to fight Travis Brown. He came out and said it. So I think there's a narrative shift that's happening with AKA, and hopefully they're serious about it, because they are arguably, other than Jack's Winklejohn, they are the premier gym. There's no one better. The people they put out, there's no one better. So hopefully they get their shit together and can get people on fights more often.
Oh yeah. And I think the one thing, especially that if I'm Cain Velasquez, I'm really relaxed about cutting back on my sparring. Travis Brown, aside from Ronda Rousey, who does he have to spar with? at Glendale Fight Club. No one who's ever even deserved to sniff the jockstrap of Cain Velasquez, that's for sure. So if ever there was an opportunity for him to kind of pace himself in the sparring, I feel like this is probably the guy to do it with.
I feel like Jake Ellenberger went there for a while. I don't know
He
what
did,
happened.
but now he's back at Kings, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, I know. I'm pointing out that there once was another man there that might have been good, but he got fucked up when he went there. So, if anything, let's see how this goes.
Yeah, and with that, I think that we've touched on everything we can. It wasn't necessarily the highest of high notes, but I think it's kind of funny because we're going to laugh at them because they're injured and we're not. So that's a good enough place for me to end it. Brett, do you have any closing remarks for these, our friends and fans and buddies?
This is the best. Woo!
Oh, our audience is back, our faithful audience. Well, thank you once again for tuning in. Please subscribe if you like the video. If you don't like it, please subscribe. I would just appreciate it as a friend to friend. You know, you should scratch my back, I'll scratch yours. I'll follow back or subscribe or whatever it is I have to do. I want to be successful at this because I don't want to be speaking to my dog who is meandering around here somewhere looking for my attention. But that's neither here nor there. I have been Jake. That has been Brett. And it seems that we are done for another week in MMA.